It's a privilege to be here. My name is Nick Jackson. Like Lisa said, I have a background working in sales. So I was originally in college, I was pre-med, and my brother came to me and he said, "Hey, Nick, I'm going to do Nu Skin." And he talked to me about the what and the how, but he forgot to share the why. And I told him, you know what? I don't know. I don't think so. It's kind of interesting. He called me up and he said, "Hey, there's something really important that I want to talk to you about. Can I come over tonight to your house and talk to you?" And so I was worried. I didn't know what he was going to tell me. I didn't think it'd be anything business related. I thought it was like something serious going on in his life. And he came over and he said, "Hey, Nick, I'm going to do Nu Skin." And I knew a little bit about Nu Skin because I grew up in Provo, Utah, where the headquarters of the company is. I'm sure many of you guys have been there. And my mom, actually, when I was a kid, when I had bad acne as a teenager, she was actually a Nu Skin distributor at one point. And so she would use the products, have me put on, they had like this clay pack product back in the day that helped dry out, your acne. And she would put that on my face overnight and it worked and it helped. And so, my brother came to me and he said, "Hey, I'm doing this. This is how I'm going to do it, our strategy." And I said, "You know what? I'm planning on going to be a doctor. I've got, different plans with my life as of right at that moment." And I said, no. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to that where, yeah, it did. It does. Where maybe you were a little skeptical at first getting started, right? Or you thought, I don't know if this is really for me. Or maybe you're still in a place where maybe you've been in the business a little bit, but haven't really have the success that you want to have. And sometimes we have those thoughts that creep in of like, am I really cut out for this? Can I really do this? Is this really worth my time? And, my brother he stuck with it though. And he actually went to a big event. He actually went to, our upline is, Brent Bryson and Jeff Mack and Nathan and those guys. And so Brent's team in Thailand, John Emernand, if any of you guys know him, they put on a big event. It was a success Olympics over there. My brother went to that event and he came back and he was just on fire. Talked to me about making millions of dollars and traveling the world and being able to live life on his terms and be his own boss. And I said, I want that too, right? Maybe I should take a look into this. And so when he really shared that why and that vision with me, it really spoke to my heart. And I decided to take a look. And, I dived in and my first 5 years, I struggled a lot and I jumped in, and luckily I lived close to the Nu Skin headquarters. And so I was a student. I was going to school full time. I was working 20 hours a week. I was kind of newly married and trying to figure that whole thing out. And, but I was taught a couple important things. Number one, my mentors taught me to turn my car into a university on wheels. And I got my hands on all these different audios from, different successful leaders in Nu Skin from different events. And so while I was walking to class, while I was working out at the gym, I was listening to this stuff and filling my mind, it got me to see this bigger vision. And I was able to go to the events and learn from the leaders and, see people like Lisa and Paul, right, that have had amazing success and how they've been able to transform their lives. And, I really caught the Nu Skin fever, right? Caught the Nu Skin bug. However, my first 5 years, I actually qualified as a brand representative 5 times. I dropped back down to distributor 5 times. The highest I got in that time was to Lapis. When Nu Skin opened up in Chile, I do speak some Spanish. So I went down there and I got up to Lapis, and my highest check was like $3,500. And, and then things kind of fizzled out, 6 to 12 months later, I was back at distributor, and that team kind of fizzled out and things. And, I remember feeling just a lot of just kind of like shame, honestly, of thinking, okay, I've been in the business for so long. And, when I would share the business with somebody and I'd explain the compensation plan, and they'd say, "Well, where are you?" And I'd feel so uncomfortable, right? Because it'd be like, oh, well, I've felt inadequate. I felt like maybe I wasn't a good leader. Maybe nobody was ever going to want to follow me and, to do this business with me and be willing to join me. And when was I ever going to find someone like me? right? Someone like me that would stick with it through all the ups and the downs and the years of failure. And, what really helped me was, I graduated from college. I got into the real world. I moved to Seattle, lived there for 4 or 5 years, and started working. And my first job, I was working for Frito-Lay, and I was a sales manager. So I was managing the guys that drive the trucks and stock all the chips and snacks in the convenience stores. And I actually had to do that job as part of my training. And so for about 3 to 4 months, I was waking up at 1 a.m., had to start work at 2 a.m. I was driving the big 24-foot truck that was full of all the chips and snacks in the back. I was down on my hands and knees in dirty gas stations at 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning with my knee pads on, sweating, my gloves on, and organizing the chips and filling up the stores and the inventory and placing the orders. And I wanted so bad to be successful, right? And I thought all day long, man, how nice would it be if I could be successful in Nu Skin, if I didn't have to do this, right? And then I got into medical sales, right? And really increased my income doing that, but had to travel a lot. And I just got to a point, after a few years in the real world, where I just realized that if I didn't really find a way to be my own boss and things, then I was gonna have to work for someone else for the rest of my life and never have control over my time or my income or how many vacation days that I can get every year. And I started thinking about my future, right? I started thinking about the people that had been doing my job, my career, but been doing it longer than me, right? An additional, 5, 10, 15, 20 years longer than me. I had to really think about, okay, what is the potential of the financial vehicle, that financial vehicle, and the people, my boss, right? How much money does he make, right? And then also it's about having the time, right? Having both the money to live, the way you want to live, be able to afford the things you want to afford, and provide the life you want to have for your family. But then also having the time freedom to enjoy it. And I saw, my boss, he had been in with a company 20 plus years, was on the road all the time, away from his family. He'd come and work with me, right, out in my territory and work with me. And we'd get phone calls from his son, his 6-year-old son on FaceTime saying, "Daddy, where are you? When are you coming home?" Right. And I just said, you know what? I don't want to live like that. I want to be able to be there. And also I want to be able to make a lot more money than that career could pay me. And then I'll at the same time have the time freedom to enjoy it. And for me, it was really a journey in personal development, and I've learned a lot of things. I'm going to share some things with you guys tonight. But I remember hearing from different leaders, up in Seattle, I was around, I don't know if you guys know Jeff, I think his wife's name is Miyako Gledhill, who are longtime leaders with the company. And they would put on some events and things up in Seattle. I remember I'd always go and try to just soak in whatever I could. And, I remember going to networking events in downtown Seattle, trying to meet people and, trying to do whatever I could to make it work. And I remember hearing from, Jeff and others, that other team elites, that 80% of success in this business is your mindset. And then the other 20% is the mechanics and the strategy and the action. And, I thought to myself, what does that even mean? Right. And so I started, on this path of personal development, right, of reading books. And, but what happened was I started spending so much time. I'd come home from work, right, from the job that I hated, and I wanted to create freedom with Nu Skin. However, I didn't really have that belief there. And so I would procrastinate. I'm not sure if any of you guys can relate, right? It's like you want it so bad, you think about it all day long, right? It's like it's all you think about. But getting yourself to actually take that action, is a challenge. And for me, a lot of the time I would get excited, I get pumped up, and I'd say, you know what, on Monday, I'm gonna do it, right? On June 1st, I'm going to do it. After Thanksgiving, I'm going to do it. I'm going to launch my business. I'm going to crush it. I'm going to create this incredible success story. And, always planning, right? Planning, and planning, but never doing the execution. And, there were times where I'd start working and I'd work, for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks and not really get the results that I wanted. and just feel defeated. And I'd say, you know what, this isn't working. Let me go back to the drawing board. And so I'd stop taking action. I'd go back, and I'd watch YouTube videos from every network marketing guru on the internet, listen to all the training calls, the OTG lives, or the generals calls, like we used to call them. And, and it wasn't until I actually put into practice some of these principles that I want to talk to about tonight that things really changed. And what happened was, April 10th, 2017, I'll share my story as I share these slides, but, some of the things that I've learned along the way, what are some of these enemies of success, right, that hold us back? And part of this comes from, my mentor, Brent Bryson. He's been with the company around 30 years. The Circle of Excellence 4 with the company, so over $20 million in earnings. And he actually, when he was about 15 years in the business, he actually wrote up an article titled The Enemies of Success. And so part of this comes from him, and part of this comes from, this is when he was at that time a $5 million Circle member and team elite. And so part of this also comes from my own personal experience. But for me, it was April 10th, 2017, where I said, okay, I'm going to really do this, right? I don't care how long it takes me. I'm just going to put my head down and work as hard as I can every day until I get where I want to be. And one thing that Brent had taught me was the single decision theory, right? So for me, for example, I grew up, just kind of with the religious environment that I grew up in here in Utah. My family doesn't drink, we don't smoke, right? And so I made the decision one time to never smoke, right? And so I never again have to decide if that's something I'm going to do, right? And so, just like brushing your teeth, right? You probably now have a habit of like, you don't go to bed without brushing your teeth, right? It's not like, am I going to brush my teeth tonight? Am I not going to brush my teeth tonight, right? It's, you've already made the decision. You have that as a habit. That's part of who you are and what you do. And so, I love this quote from my mentor, where he said, you've made the decision to go as far in the business as you can possibly go. You don't have to worry about quitting because you're not going to quit. You've already decided not to quit. And so for me, it was April 10th, 2017. And I just remember sitting there and saying, okay, for the very first time in my experience, I'm just going to give it everything that I've got. Up to that point, I was really worried about what other people thought of me. I was really insecure about, MLM. And, I hadn't really internalized yet, it took me some time to do that, really internalize how great this business is and how it can really change lives and all the positive things about this business. And so I finally made that decision, right? And things were so much easier, right? Because instead of waking up every day and wondering to myself and putting all this energy into, am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? Right? It's like you wake up and you already know exactly what you're committed to do today, right? You already have a plan, right? You make the decision of, okay, this is what I'm going to do every single day until I achieve my goals, right? And I'm going to commit, and I'm going to basically just surrender to the process, surrender to the fact that I'm going to have to go through some rejection, right? And surrender to some of these things I'm going to talk about today. And so the first thing, the biggest thing that'll hold you back is indecision. And if you want to kind of study up on decision, there's a whole chapter on decision in the book, Think and Grow Rich, right? And a guy that I follow a lot, his name is Bob Proctor. He's kind of a, mindset guru and things, and teaches a lot about how to change your paradigms and your habits and belief systems. He recommends to read that chapter on decision every day for 30 days, over and over and over for it to really click. But you have to ask yourself the question, have I really decided, right? And how do you know if you've made a decision, right? I would say you'd know you've made a decision when you take action on it, right? I think it's easy to say, okay, I'm not going to quit, but are you really doing it, right? Have you really, decided, made the decision to put in the work? Okay. So next is limiting beliefs. The second thing that I really had to do is just say, okay, you know what? If so many other people have been successful, I probably can too if I do what they did. Right. And so I think, going back to 80% of success in this business is your mindset. I think you have to look at that and say, what are you focusing on? I think all of us, we know where we'd like to be. However, we focus 95% of the time on the lack of what we want, right? It's like you want to be a team elite. You want to qualify for Hawaii. You want to, make 5,000 a month, 10,000 a month, $20,000 per month. But what we tend to do is focus on the fact that we're not there, right? I think it's kind of like human nature, is that we tend to focus on the lack of what we want instead of getting ourselves to really, visualize and be able to see yourself where you want to be, right? There's a really good book called The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard, right? And he says, just talks a lot about that you should feel now how you would feel if you'd already achieved those goals, right? It's the law of assumption, right? How would you feel? How would you talk? How would you walk? How would you share the business? How would you show up on social media if you knew you were going to succeed? If you knew it was already a done deal, there was no way that you could fail. And Brent Bryson, he always used to say to me, you got to control the battle between your ears. He said, most people lose the battle between their ears before they actually go out and give themselves a chance to get in the game in order to see any success. Okay. And so, what are you doing on a daily basis, right? Tony Robbins talks about having rituals. What are your rituals to align yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually with the things that you want to accomplish? Okay. So that's something to think about. And so the book was called The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. And I'll just double check that. I've got it on my Audible right here. We'll log in and check that. Okay. All right. Moving on. Next is rejection. Okay. Who here likes being rejected? Anybody like it? I don't think anyone likes it, right? And I think one important thing is, we have to separate the rejection of someone saying rejecting us as a person and our value as a person, and someone rejecting saying no to the business. Okay. And so for me, for example, Ellen, it's The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard. For me, I haven't had any of my close friends join my business. None of my buddies that I went to high school with or went to college with, none of them have signed up in my team, right? And a lot of them, talked really bad about me behind my back. And some of them that were in my wedding, my groomsmen, they unfollowed me on social media, right? When they saw me really start to be vocal and to start sharing the products and the business and being, putting things out there, they and their wives, collectively, 2 different couples, unfollowed me on social media. People that I've been friends with since the 6th grade, right? I mean, I thought these guys were my buddies. I thought they had my back. And, and so for me, I had to learn how to overcome that rejection, how to separate, how to emotionally detach from that rejection. And, some of the tips, a lot of these come from Brent Bryce, and I've also applied, is, it's like an airline attendant, right? When an airline attendant goes down the road and says, do you want some coffee? Do you want some coffee? Do you want some snacks? Do you want something to drink? The airline attendant, if they keep getting no after no after no, like they're trying to serve people, they're trying to offer something great, right? Coffee or a drink or snacks. And if people just keep saying no, 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 the flight attendant doesn't just rip open the door and jump out of the airplane, right? And say, this doesn't work, right? This doesn't feel good, right? They just keep offering it, right? Because really what we do is we're not here to convince anybody or to sell to anybody or pressure them into doing this. You're here to share your story. your why, where you see yourself going, and why you're doing this, right? And invite other people to join, right? Our goal is to educate people versus, convincing and, high pressure selling anybody. And so you have to understand that with every no, with every person you reach out to, you're planting a seed. Okay, so no doesn't mean forever. No just means not right now. And also, when they say no, it doesn't mean no to you. It doesn't mean no, they don't like you as a person, right? It means that they don't see themselves doing the business right now. And we tend to take things so personal. It's like if we have a follow-up call that we're supposed to do and the person, doesn't show up, we immediately think that, okay, this person, they're not interested. They don't want to do this. Some people take it as far as thinking that, that person's not going to want to be their friend anymore, right? But really, it's like you never know what's happening in someone's life, right? You never know if their kid was screaming, if their kid just lit the house on fire, had just got in an accident, right? And so timing, you could reach out to someone today, right? They could have just gotten a promotion, right? And they're on top of the world about their career. They're like, hey, you know what? I'm good. I'm making things happen. You could reach out to someone today and they could, they could be super stressed out, and maybe they kind of react and they're a little bit mean to you, right? They're really stressed out, they're frustrated, and they turn you down real quick. But what if that person the next day lost their job, or their spouse lost their job, or because of COVID, they got their income cut, right? So maybe today that person, wouldn't really give you the time of day, right? But tomorrow something could happen that could totally change where they're at in their life, and if they're open to learning about the business, right? And so what you have to look at is there's the law of averages, right? When you do something often enough, an average appears. And so, maybe when you first get started, as you're recruiting and sharing the opportunity, maybe 1 out of 10 people or 1 out of 20 people are going to join your team, are going to sign up, right? But the more you do that, right, the better you're going to get. Right? To eventually, maybe at first it's 1 out of 20, then it's 1 out of 10, then it's 2 out of 10, then it's 3 out of 10, right? And, how you get really good at inviting and recruiting is just by doing it. I remember, I would sit there and I would watch all these videos and read all these blogs about the best way to invite and the best way to reach out to someone. And I would call my brother, my upline, and I would, talk in theory about, okay, what if we say this and then that and then this, right? And talking about all these things. What I realized is when I just went out there and did it, I learned it so much faster, right? So there's another book called The Science of Getting Rich. And it says, 1 ounce of doing is worth a pound of theorizing, right? 1 ounce of doing is worth a pound of theorizing, right? So just a little bit of doing, a little bit of taking action is going to be so much more valuable than hours of trying to just talk about it. Okay, the next thing here is, Brent, he gives us an example. Let's just say, what if your new skin business was worth $1 million? And what if you had to talk to 1,500 people to become a team elite, right? Reach out to 1,500 people to invite them. Well, that means for every single person that you contacted, that would be $666 that you would make. Okay. And so, sometimes we don't think about it like that, right? Sometimes it's like, it's so heavy to like push the send button on a message or to pick up the phone and call somebody. But, if you were to think like, man, just by sending a message to somebody to start a conversation, like you're going to make $600. That's a great way to look at it, right? I mean, that's very motivating, I would think. Okay. And so hopefully those tips help. So next is apathy, right? So both your own or laziness, right? Your own and your team's. And so I've heard this phrase for years. I'm sure you guys have heard it, but there's no PV or GV in TV, right? So you're not going to produce any volume just by watching TV. And so, this quote here from Brent Bryson, if you have distributors who don't want to work and follow a plan, replace them. You get to choose who you work with. And it's a little hardcore, right? But at the end of the day, even, we hear from Nathan Ricks, like, you do not have time to spend with people who are not going to become executives or brand representatives, right? Obviously, we want to help everybody, but you have to really look and see, who is, match the energy, right? find the people that are bringing you that energy, that are fired up, that are motivated, that are self starters, and work with them one-on-one and work with the others in the group. But you also need to find a way to to keep yourself on task as well. And one thing that Brent had recommended to me was, let's just say you have your favorite show. I don't know, like a TV show. Could be a game show. It could be, The Bachelor. It could be, a soap opera. Who knows, right? Whatever you like. Could be sports. But let's just say you love watching this show, or you love watching this program, and it's something you do every day. What Brent taught me to do was to discipline yourself, that you're going to take a certain amount of action before you let yourself indulge in that thing that you love to do, right? And so you have a rule for yourself that before you turn on the TV today, you're going to talk to 3 new people about your business, right? And set up some structure for yourself to be able to reward yourself for that discipline. All right, so next is attrition, right? Has anybody ever had someone quit in their team? So yeah, Lisa says yes. Okay, it's not fun, right? Because we invest so much into these people, right? You believe in them, you want them to be successful, and you want to see people succeed. But people quit for many reasons, and a lot of the times it doesn't have anything to do with our business. I would say the biggest reason why people quit is because they don't truly believe that they can succeed. They get to a point where there's so much negativity in their mind, right, that they lose the battle between their ears, and they talk themselves out of doing it. And so, one tip that Brent got from Craig Tillotson, the founding distributor of the company, one of them was, when somebody quits, what does he do? How does he deal with that, right? Because it can be challenging. And Craig Tillotson said, I thank them in my mind for the contribution that they made to the business, and then you move on, right? And just the most important thing is to not be one of the quitters, right? And yeah, I think that's it, Lisa. It's like, if someone really believes they're going to succeed, right? Your thoughts lead to your feelings, which influence your actions, which influence your results, right? So if your thoughts are negative, you're going to feel discouraged, you're going to feel overwhelmed, you're going to feel inadequate, right? Maybe you're frustrated about your lack of progress so far. That's going to cause your actions to basically be non-existent, which is going to lead to poor results, right? Versus if you are filling your mind every day with positivity, right? With affirmations, with visualization, with reading positive material, with, getting on the trainings that Lisa and Paul recommend, right? Then you're going to fill your mind with that positivity, which is going to give you that hope, right? These feelings of hope and excitement about the future. And if you really believe that, you're going to take that action, which is going to end up giving you those results, right? And so everything really starts here in your mind. But there's really just one person you need to recruit, which is yourself, right? I know Brent Bryce, in this article that he wrote, he said he had to rebuild his team 4 different times because there's not one person he could count on. Okay. And look at him now, earned over $20 million in the company with Nu Skin. Okay. So the most important thing is that you don't quit, right? Okay. Next, distractions. All distractions are created equal, right? It doesn't matter what it is, right? If it's keeping you from doing the work to achieve your goals, then, it's a distraction, right? It could be you've got a sick family member, right? It could be you just want to hang out with your friends. You want to go out for drinks. You want to, go do fun things, right? You want to watch TV, right? All distractions are created equal. It doesn't, even if it's kind of a harsh example, but even if you have a family member die, right? I mean, all the compensation plan knows, it's just a mathematical equation. It doesn't understand feelings. It doesn't understand excuses. It doesn't understand what our distractions are. All it understands is how much volume we put into it. It's going to make the calculations and then spit out, pin titles and income, right? And so, Brent, he talked about, who are you going to make excuses to, right? Are you going to have to make some excuse? Are you going to make excuses to not work your business, right? Of why you're too busy to do this? Or are you going to maybe even have to make some excuses to your family and say, hey, you know what? Short term, I got to make some sacrifices. I can't just chill with the family and watch TV at night. I got to be working my business, and here's why I'm doing it. And so Brent, he talked about, he's an avid golfer, but he gave up for 5 whole years playing golf. He didn't touch a golf club. And now he golfs 5 days a week, right? He loves it. But he said here, if you're going to do this business at the highest level, you have to choose what you're going to give up. You're going to give it up in the short term, but you'll get it back. Make excuses to the right people. That is how you overcome distraction. Excuse me. So you might need to make excuses to your friends of why you can't go out, on a Saturday to go golfing because you need to, go attend a training for your business. Why you can't go out on a Friday night because you're meeting with, potential business partner, right? And so making excuses, the right excuses to the right people, right? And so, I think that's an important one. And then the last one I have here, and then we'll wrap it up, is inconsistency. This is the one that always killed me. I would always start and then stop. Okay. Yeah. Ellen, by folds, right? I mean, Brent Bryson now, I mean, he's golfing at the best golf courses around the world. He's got houses in different places that are, so in the summer he can be in this place, in the winter he can be in this place and still play golf, right? You can get that back, multiplied many times over, right? You think about just that time with your family, right? You might have to make a sacrifice of your time in the short term, right? So it might be less time, right? You might miss some games, you might miss some practices of your kids' sporting events or dance or music or whatever it is. But how much time would you lose if you don't do this, right? If you don't become financially independent, so you can have that time freedom to be present, right? Because there's the chance is that if you, just keep doing what you're doing, right? Working for someone else, you might miss out on a lot more than you would have just, a couple years of focused work to be able to launch your business to a point where you can then be more financially independent, right? Be able to have more time freedom and then have the rest of your life to be there, right? With your kids and with your family. So inconsistency is my last one. The first 90 days are all about consistency. And I would just say, for me, kind of wrapping up part of my story was, April 10th, 2017, I made that decision to just give it everything that I've got and to put my head down, right? To kind of reprogram my mind to believe that I could do it by filling myself with positive thoughts and focusing on what I did want. And then I just made the commitment, right? That I was just going to put my head down, not worry about who says yes or no, not worry about who quits, who stays, or who leaves, that I was just going to put my head down and work as hard as I could every day until I achieved my goals. And my first month doing that in April, I hit brand rep or executive. My second month in May, I became a gold. My third month in June, I hit ruby. My fourth month, I hit emerald. My fifth month, I hit diamond. And my ninth month, I hit blue diamond. Okay. And that was after 5 years of failure where I had previously, qualified as a brand rep or executive 5 times and dropped back down. And so, applying these principles, if I could do it, any one of you guys can do it, right? I mean, I remember, and I'll kind of finish with this story, is one of my friends actually that I had prospected previously about the business. He called me like, March or April. He's like, hey, I heard there's big things happening with Nu Skin. And, my buddy that works at the company tells me I need to talk to these leaders in the UK because they're crushing it over there. And he was like, what's going on? I want to talk to you too and kind of see what's happening. And I just felt like I was so bad, so bad at telling the story, and I tried to kind of give my best. Yeah, we're making it happen too. But I was all alone, all by myself, no team, just a little bit of hope, that I could make it happen. And, but what happened is I decided to dive into it and I got good at it by doing it. Right. And so you just have to be willing to say, hey, I'm going to surrender to the process. I'm going to follow what my leaders tell me, what, Lisa and Paul teach me. And just know that if you do what they've done, you can get the results that they have. And so, that's it. That's it for my presentation, what I wanted to share. I hope that was helpful for you guys. And once again, it's an honor to be here and be able to speak to you.